Well, that's not the way we wanted to end our regular season now, is it? Cardinals lost 38-30 to the Seattle Seahawks at home, continuing the struggles at home, continuing the late season struggles. Cardinals are in the playoffs. They backed their way in the playoffs. They had a chance to, win the division. San Francisco did their part, gave the Cardinals the chance they needed, and Cardinals couldn't seal the deal. So we're going to talk about this game. We're going to, get a chance to kind of, decompress, deal with it, process it together. So we'll hang out, we'll talk, we'll take your questions and comments in the chat. Share your observations. I know we're all very frustrated. So we'll get to all of that today. So, so let's start by saying, hey, to folks that are here. We've got hello from Brazil from Leomar Lima. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate I really appreciate you being here. Love having folks from all over the world, joining us. So thank you for being here. Sorry. And hang on just a second. My son just woke up, so he's really tired and just came in here. Do you want to say hi to the camera, Adrian? No? Okay. All right. So live streaming. So thank you for being here. Greetings. Love having folks from everywhere joining us. So thank you for being here. Sorry. All right, let me get to the rest of the folks. Say hey to the rest of the folks here. We got Meme Source. Delete Murray's Fortnite account. Yeah, maybe want to see him play less video games, right? And so I hear you there. We got Avery 1X, the secondary man. Yeah, that secondary, Breon Borders, he was a guy who was, we picked up from, I think, Tennessee's practice squad, and he got burnt on that one play from Tyler Lockett, probably got burnt a few more times. And, the secondary's banged up. We're starting guys that, have spent a lot of the season on the practice squad. That's what happens, right? Yeah, and Meme Source saying the same thing, Yeah, absolutely. They really struggled. And I don't know, I mean, that's what happens again when you're bringing guys that aren't really NFL starters. You're having to rely on them, and that happens, right? Simon's here. Thank you for being here. Feeling sour after this game. I hear you. So this was a rough one. It was. I mean, my reaction video. I said this video was weird. That's at least my take on it. A lot of weird things going on. Like the offense at points looked good. The defense made plays at points, but then they have mistakes. We weren't penalized as much as we were in previous games, but it still mattered. And I don't know. We got Bay Stringer. What's up, Professor? I'm here with positive vibes, man. The Saints won the NFC South title, and the Bucks won the whole. All right, hold on, think. So appreciate the positive vibes. Appreciate you being here as usual. So thank you for being here. So yeah. So all right. So let me ask you this. What do you think? I'm seeing people saying cornerback was really a tough part. Ouch, my heart. Yeah. Okay, so let's go through like what besides the cornerbacks, which we know struggled, right? We talked about that already. Who played well and who didn't? Who were the kind of studs and duds? Who were the goats and the scapegoats, and who showed up for the Cardinals and who didn't? Let me know in the comments, and we'll kind of get I'll kind of go through there, and then if you got any questions or comments, go ahead and get them in there. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, that was rough, right? And Andy Lee's been good this season. That just was really rough, and it gave them such good position, right? It gave them great field position. made it tough for our defense, right there. So yeah, that was a killer for sure, right? Zach Ertz, I think had a good game. I mean, he had he was very dependable, got a lot of key catches for the team. I mentioned him in my reaction video to the game, that I thought he played well. He was one of very few players, that played well, right? Chandler Jones had a good game. He got that. I mean, he got that forced fumble that on that sack that led to the touchdown. And man, the game, looked like it was starting off on a really good foot, right? And with that huge play, and then it kind of went downhill from there. But I think he had a good game. Eno stud towards the end. Yeah, so I would tell you, as I was watching the game, one of the things I just kind of thought and that it kind of occurred to me is this game's going bad, and this is I guess a silver lining, but Benjamin looked like a competent running back. He was catching the ball, running the ball. He had maybe one or two plays that weren't ideal, but overall, he looked like a guy who I'd feel comfortable, being one of the guys that splits carries, if we needed him to. So, when you're looking at in terms of what's going to happen with the running back room next year, there's a question, do they bring back Connor and Edmonds? If they don't bring both of those guys back, I could see, getting to be part of that, excuse me, part of that backfield. I mean, I thought he looked competent. So yeah. You thought we had a poor performance all phases. The most of our points came on turnovers. Green and Humphreys played poorly. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, there were a few nice plays on offense. I mean, the offense was weird. It stalled out a lot. I mean, but we didn't turn over the ball on offense. Made a few nice plays, but overall, yeah, it was kind of rough in all phases. I feel like the defense had the toughest time, but yeah. Zach is the only consistent guy on the offensive side. Yeah, I mean, I think Connor's when he's healthy, is pretty consistent, but Zach Ertz has been really, in terms of pass catchers, he's certainly been, the most reliable guy, right? Yeah, and Connor started the game. Hope he gets re-signed. I love him in this offense. He's not I don't think he's the bell cow who you want carrying, I don't think you want him getting 20, 25 carries a game. You want him getting 10 to 15 carries and another, 5 or so receptions, but getting you those touchdowns, right, and those short yardage. Connor, Hudson, Pugh, Ertz played good on the offense. Where the heck did Kirk go? He leave early to make it home for a primetime game. AJ ate popcorn before. Yeah. Kirk had that one really nice catch, but he was kind of invisible for mostly the rest of the game, right? So, yeah. And AJ, man, it's tough. I've been an AJ apologist, and I do think he's been good through most of the season had a few mental lapses, but I don't know. This game was really rough, and he's had a lot of those lately, so I don't question his effort. I know a lot of people want to. I think they've been just kind of mental errors. But I've been an apologist for him, but now I'm starting to come around to yeah, maybe we let him walk and try to find someone else next year for that spot. O-line was not protecting the pass or creating running lanes. Yeah, I mean, the offensive line really struggled. I mean, they sacked Murray 5 times. Now, some of those, I think Murray was kind of holding ball a while, and the plays didn't develop, but still, they were getting pressure up the middle a lot, for sure. Which unit played worse? I think the defense played worse. They had 2 really big plays, the turnovers, but they just kept getting gashed. In the offense, they stalled out, but they still managed to kind of get in there and move the ball when they needed to. But the defense just kept giving up big plays and stuff. And, we talked about, the cornerback room being part of it, and the run defense. I said in my reaction video that this was probably the run defense's worst game. They gave over 200 yards, 6.7 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, huge run. But it wasn't just the one big run by Rashad Penny. They got gashed. It was a bad game for the defense, in my opinion. The offense scored once and gave up. Yeah, I mean that punt was a really bad situation, right? Do I think Murray's going to play baseball? No, I don't think he's leaving to play baseball. I mean, as frustrating as this is, he's had a good season. He's an ascending player on a team that's making the playoffs. As frustrating as it is, it's a team that's gotten better for 3 years in a row. They need to figure out what's going on at the end of the season. I get it, and there's a lot of conversations going to be had about that, but I don't think he's going anywhere. Not just yet, at least. So Humphreys had those penalties. That was a tough part. Like DJ Humphreys had a couple penalties that really hurt. So I don't know. I'll have to look at. I felt like most of the pressure came up the middle, though. So I'm not going to pin that on Humphreys. I'll need to look at and I know everyone loves PFF grades. I need to look at the PFF grades and see how the offensive line, they grade the offensive line. But I felt like more of the pressure was coming up the middle. Maybe I'm wrong. That's my recollection. But the penalties, the flags that Humphreys had a couple of penalties, and that hurt for sure. How did the Seahawks want this more than the Cardinals? The Seahawks were planning their vacations. The Cardinals had chance. Yeah, the NFC champs. Yeah, and this is me. My bias is I generally don't like to question players' efforts. Sometimes one team just plays better, and I know that there are different levels of effort, but like these are professionals who work hard, and I'm not going to be the guy who said one team wants it more. But the Cardinals made some mistakes, and the Seahawks definitely played better. But this was the Seahawks. They were saying in this game, this was their Super Bowl. The announcers were talking about that. Pete Carroll kind of looked at it this way. So, this is their last game of the season. So if one accepts the premise that Seattle wanted it more, I think the answer as to how or why is because this for Seattle was their Super Bowl. This was the last game they had. And for the Cardinals, they're looking ahead to the playoffs. That would be the answer I would give if I were going to kind of, accept that premise. So that to me is the answer. But, it's disappointing, no doubt, 100%. We should use Greg Dortch more. He seems solid. I agree. When he's touched the ball, he's looked really good. He looked good last week. He looked really good in the preseason. I think he's earned a spot on this roster, or at least a chance to compete for a spot on this roster next year. I think he's a really good slot receiver. If we don't bring back Christian Kirk, which I think is a legitimate question, that we were talking about this a lot in the Discord, which use this as a pitch. If you're not part of the Discord, there's a link to it in the description of this video. We have a Discord with like 80-something folks in there, and we talk Cardinals stuff all through the week. And game day, there's a chat there. But we've been talking about the whole receiver situation, and if Christian Kirk moves on, I think your slot receivers next year, Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch, and I like those guys. So I'd like to see more of them, 100%. So real quick, one of the things I do is I kind of on my channel, if you're a channel member, I give you the opportunity to kind of jump in on the phone line. So I'm going to use this as a chance real quick to acknowledge, and I'll probably do this again later, but I want to real quick acknowledge my channel members and thank them. So there's folks who help support the channel. This is my list of channel members who got the Ring of Honor and the starting lineup folks. And I really, they help support with every month giving a small amount that helps me build and grow the channel and buy things like an improved mic to improve the sound and just try to do better work. And one of those channel members who's been here for a while, who's really reliable and supports Arizona Cardinals content creators, is the one, the only, the legend, Lennon Wolf. How are you, good sir?
Tough loss, but we have the Rams. I can see that on my TV because I'm watching the Raiders and Chargers. It would be the winner between the Raiders and Chargers. If the winner is in the playoffs, well, we don't care because it's in the AFC, but I gotta say it was a bad game, but hopefully next week we get to beat LA.
Nice. Well, I know there's a kind of a long history of the beat LA, and hopefully we can do that. So, Lennon, for you, who do you think had the best game, and who do you think had the worst game for the Cardinals?
To me, the best game, I would pick James Conner, but it was sad when he got hurt because he was not playing until the game against the the who is it? The Rams. The
Mm-hmm.
Rams. And then I must have said this, but all of a sudden we went. All it matters, we're in the playoffs, and I was on the AZ Sports Fans channel today, so go ahead and check that out. But like I said, just like on Mike's stream, we always lose at home, and it's just the way the cookie crumbles. And we seem like we're bad at home. It's kind of disgusting, but it's because I don't know why, but hopefully the Cardinals can bounce back. I don't think the Cardinals don't deserve to win the division. It's because if they win the division, they play at home, and I think we're bad at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what is going on with our home advantage because we started 7-0 and we lost to the Packers, we lost to the Panthers, we lost to the Rams, the Lions, the Colts, and now the Seattle Seahawks. That is a 6-10, now 7-10 team. The 49ers beat the Rams, but we had a chance in our hands to win that division.
Yeah, that's been really tough. So, and the struggles at home have been really perplexing. So it's disappointing. Well, Lennon, before I let you go, is there anything else you want to say to everyone out there?
Go ahead and check me out. My name is Lennon Wolf, the AZ Sports Fan. I know I sound like the AZ Sports Fan's name, but the reason why my name is Lennon Wolf, the AZ Sports Fan, because number one, my name is Lennon Wolf, and number two, I'm an Arizona sports fan. But talk everything Arizona Cardinals, and even a little bit of the Suns now, but they lost to the Heat. But the Cardinals is always my number one sport.
All right, awesome. Well, Len, thanks for hopping in here. Thank you for being a great supporter. My channel and other Arizona Cardinals content creators. Appreciate you, man. Take care.
You too. Go Cards.
All right. So thanks to Len for jumping in here. So getting back to the chat, Christian One Nice Catch Kirk. That should be his nickname, isn't it? Because he started off the season really well, I think, but lately it's been One Nice Catch. And then some drops and some issues, right? So I think that is probably a really accurate nickname, right? The defense got off the field. They had one sip of water, and then they had to get back on the field. That's then that's a fair point. When an offense can't move the ball, the defense struggles, because they're on the field too much. In the first half, though, the Cardinals did sustain a really long drive, but in the second half, I think what you're saying was happening more too. So that's a good point. I also think Simmons played poorly. I don't think he's suited to play as part of the secondary unit. He's just not a cornerback. I'd rather see him as inside linebacker or outside linebacker. So when they're moving him into kind of that slot and such, yeah. Simmons is tough because he's so talented. He makes some big plays, but it just feels like they've had a hard time getting him to play consistently and well. I don't know what's going on there. If maybe maybe they just it's the same issue. We need help in general is fix the interior defensive line to help those linebackers. But yeah, I hear you there. AJ plays like he wants to walk. Defense gave up 38 points. Yeah, AJ Green again. He was definitely a constant topic of discussion in the Discord. He's really struggling. So yeah, I think he might be moving on. Yeah. Professor, tell us your thoughts on the coaching for this game, head coach, DC, and special teams. So, coaching. I actually didn't mind the offensive play calling. I think one of the things we've criticized them about with the offensive play calling is that they were trying to get too cute and take too many deep shots. They ran the ball more, it felt like, and did more short passes, but they still stalled out. So I didn't hate the play calling on offense and even the coaching, but a penalty here, penalty there, a drop catch, a mental error by AJ Green. But I thought the offensive play calling wasn't bad. The defensive coaching, it's like obviously they gave. When you give up 38 points, it's hard to defend the defensive coaching, but at the same time, man, I think that cornerback room, there's a point where you lose that war of attrition where you're down to guys that are, guys that weren't even on your practice squad when the season started. They were on someone else's practice squad. Is it the coaching or is it the horses that just can't run, right? And do they just not have the players right now to be able to, I guess you could argue, and I think it'd probably be fair to argue this, that, VJ Vance Joseph needed to have a game plan that could cover that up. But I don't know. There's a point where their players are just beating your players, and Lockett is a really good receiver. He's torched just before. I thought they didn't do a terrible job against DK Metcalf. He had a few plays, but DK Metcalf had 5 receptions, 58 yards, no touchdowns. They managed to do okay against him. It was Lockett that really hurt us. So, I can't say the coaching was really good. The special teams, our special teams, I like the fact that they had Dortch in there, returning because Moore struggled. That block punt, is that on the coaching? I don't know. Maybe it is. Sometimes those things are weird. So I can't say the coaching did a great job. I liked the play calling on offense better. Just the execution wasn't there. That's my view, at least. Let's see. Temperature of Cliff Seat if we lose next week. I still think I don't think he's on the hot seat. I know we're very frustrated. And in fact, I'll use this chance to kind of, if you haven't seen it, I did a video this last week on, kind of ranking the coaches, putting them in tiers based on their job security and where they rank. And, maybe you move them down a tier into what I'd call a year away from being on the hot seat if they lose, if next year goes really south. I think the ownership is looking at this and they're saying, you know what, this team has improved over 3 years. They've made the playoffs. Yes, it's disappointing. We got to fix some things. I know fans are going to be calling for his head, for his job. I get it. But objectively speaking, if they lose next week, I don't think he's on the hot seat. I think they're going to, reassess and try to fix things. Now next year, if they don't make improvements, then he could be, right? Let's see. Oh, you're talking about the interview saying, okay, thank you. And I didn't catch Cliff's interview. He's saying Seattle wanted it more, and how can I say it? There's coach speak, right? If you're Cliff Kingsbury and you are talking to the media after a game and you want to light a fire under your guys, you sometimes that's what you'll say. So, and maybe they did want it more. Again, that's just my bias. I'm just not a guy who's I don't like questioning the effort level of players. But I'll question their performance, right? But I think Cliff, we talked about if they did want it more, it's because the Cardinals were looking ahead to the playoffs. But coaches say things like that, right? So I don't know. Just like the kids, time for bed, time for beer. How's everyone doing? Hey, Chris. Well, we're not doing great. And if you didn't catch the beginning of the stream, my son woke up. So I thought we sent our kids to bed too, but my son woke up. Let's see. Will they get Wesley like last? I'm not sure. I think there's a typo. Will they got Wesley like last week? They not giving him those plays. Exam for D-Hop, I was disappointed we didn't see more of Wesley. He's another guy that we've all been, in the Discord all week, we've been talking about that we really like what we've seen from him. And is he going to be that guy to take AJ Green's spot next year? He had 2 receptions for 17 yards. He was 4 targets. That's not all on him that he wasn't targeted more, although some of that is not getting open, right? So I would have liked to see more from him, right? Instead, we had, AJ Green have 4 catches on 9 targets, right? That's not good. So Jordan P, regular guy, contributor in terms of comments and being here. I appreciate you being here. Cliff and Vance need to go. I hear you. I don't think so, but I know that's going to be a very popular opinion. I don't think they need to go, but I understand that's going to be a very popular viewpoint for a while, probably all off season, especially if they don't win in the playoffs. Keenan, thank you for being here. Appreciate that. Rams were the worst possible matchup. Cliff screwed us. I mean, that's that. Maybe it's a tough. Maybe it's the worst matchup. We've split with them. It's a team we know. They know us. I mean, there's a lot of bad matchups. I mean, I guess the Cowboys, you could say, that would be a better matchup, but I don't know. After the way we beat them, I don't know if I'd want to trust that we'll beat them twice in a row. So I don't know. It's tough. Beat Dallas. Yeah. Okay. I hate Dallas, right? We're at least the team. We're officially the Monday Night Game. Yeah. Okay. We are the Monday Night Game. Thanks for being here. If your coach is saying you'd rather play on the road because of some hoax, we can't win at home, that says a lot about your coach. I didn't see the interview, so I'm not going to really get into that, but okay. Robert G, thank you for being here. I bet Keyshawn Johnson would have outplayed AJ Green if we kept him. Maybe. I mean, he was a solid kind of, depth guy. I mean, AJ Green is tough because he's made some really nice plays. He's been really good on the big 50-50 balls, but then he's had these mental lapses that are really frustrating. So I don't think Keyshawn Johnson is going to make some of those jump ball, 50-50 ball plays that AJ Green has made, but he's also not going to drop some of these catches. So, I don't know. I think we need a good 50-50 ball receiver on that side. I know Hopkins does that as well, but I like those big receivers outside in this offense. But yeah, when he's missing those catches, that's frustrating, right? Should Green be taking veteran days off in practice? I don't know. I don't know if he should or not. I mean, it's weird because the biggest issues with Green, to me, I know some people are saying it's effort. I think it's just those mental lapses, like that one ball that was thrown right to him. He was a little awkward to kind of adjust to it, but he missed it, right? And and there's just been things that just felt like were lack mental errors. So I don't know. That's tough. Murray and Green haven't developed like I was hoping. Yeah, it probably seems like there's just the chemistry isn't there, right? Yeah. We give up too much pressure. 80 will feast again. Yeah, I mean, listen, if against the Rams, that could be really scary because if we're giving a pressure up the middle, at least that's what it looked like to me from this game. Aaron Donald, that is a scary matchup. So that's a fair point, right? Tim says, I agree Cliff is safe. Team was picked to finish last in division. We lose next week. Okay, still had a good season. Yeah, and I get how it's frustrating the way this is going for people have a hard time kind of taking that perspective. Maybe it's just because I've been a Cardinals fans for so freaking long. But again, I step back and I look at it. And again, team has improved 3 years in a row. If they take a step back next year and they don't make the playoffs, let's talk about our coaching situation, right? And I get it. The late season collapses are our problem. But when you have a team that's improved every single year, and as frustrating as Cliff has been, in my opinion, his coaching has improved. So he's a young coach. He works hard. He's smart, and he's in the building a lot. So I'm just my view is when you've got a guy who works hard and is smart, and has shown improvement, I'm going to bet on that guy and give him a chance. There's a point where you have to say, yeah, it's time to move on, but I'm not there yet. And I understand for those of you who feel like we should fire him, I get it. I mean, we all have, I don't begrudge you having that opinion. That's just my take is give him some more time. Simon, okay, per Sport Check, Kirk's unrestricted free agent current market value is $12 million a year. Green $7 million. Some free agent comps that I like that could be suitable replacements. Pascal, Chark, and Hilton. Yeah, and it's just funny. And I'm plugging the Discord again. We were talking about this in the Discord today. And I was actually on Spot Track, looking at that, and we were talking about, well, what's it make sense to sign Kirk for? And I looked at some of those comps, and yeah, the receiver in that kind of 10 to 12 million a year is kind of those receiver comps. Maybe, if he's willing to take kind of a hometown discount, maybe you get 8 to 10 million. So the question is, do you want to pay that? So, and maybe this is a good question for the chat because we're talking about Kirk. in your opinion, do you want Kirk back? And if at all, and if so, what are you willing to pay for him? And just to give a point of reference, for example, Cole Beasley is making like 7 point something million, and he's a slot receiver, and that's what, and he's when he's healthy, he's a really good slot receiver. That I feel like for a slot receiver, you're looking anywhere for the ones that aren't that great, maybe 5-6 million, for the ones that are starters but not high end, to high end slot receivers, maybe 12 million. So maybe a little bit more if they're really, really good. So, what do you want him back, and what would you pay him, be willing to pay him? But yeah, I think those are some interesting comps to look at and potential replacements. Kirk and Isabella would be the receiver. Would be the receivers I replace. Yeah, I mean, I think Isabella is a guy. I think he's got another year on his rookie deal next year. They'll probably keep him around and let him be a depth guy. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But I could see them keeping him. If Kirk walks, because he's on last year of his rookie deal, I could see them saying, okay, let's go into the season. We're going to have Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch as our slot receivers. And Christian Kirk, although he's been more of an outside receiver, have him as a third guy there. I could see them doing it, even though he's more of an outside receiver. I don't know. But I don't think they're bringing. I think Isabella's going to play out his rookie deal and then move on. And Kirk is certainly a question mark, right? Alice Main, thank you for being here. Too much inconsistency with cards. You just don't know who's going to show up. Yeah, it's been that way. Like second half of the season, it's been inconsistent. First half of the season, I think it was very consistent. Kyler was really good. The pass defense was good. Yeah, the run defense was a little tough, but and then the receivers, it wasn't always the same guy having a big game, but in the first half of the season, someone was having a big game every game. Lately, it hasn't, and that's really been frustrating, right? Yeah. Why do you think AJ Green hasn't been a red zone threat as his size would lend you to say he would be? That's a great question, because I thought he would be, and early in the season, he had a few plays where they used him that way. That's a really good question. I think part is that they do seem to run the ball more in the red zone. Another part is it seems like when they're throwing to the red zone, it seems like when they're passing in the red zone, they're passing in the middle, if that makes sense. They're a little more in the middle of the red zone, like a little more to the tight ends, more maybe some stuff underneath or in the back of the end zone. But it doesn't seem like they're doing a lot of like back shoulder fades, which is, I think, like with a guy like him, that's the kind of thing you'd probably expect to see a lot in the red zone, those back shoulder fades to that big receiver. And for whatever reason, they aren't doing that. Maybe they don't trust him. Maybe that's part of the deal. So why? I don't know why he hasn't been, because he seems like he should be. So I know that's not a very satisfying answer, because I just don't. They're not calling his number in the red zone. That's the best answer I can give, is they've decided not to. Why? Maybe it's the stuff we're seeing. Maybe I don't know. That's a good question. I feel better about facing the Rams than anyone else right now. I don't think Stafford has what it takes to make a playoff run. I think he'll have a storied career, but never win the big one. I mean, listen, that's a fair point. Like, I don't feel great about any playoff matchup the way the Cardinals are playing. But if you look at the teams, like, okay, Stafford is, he's had a great year. But he is a guy who is also prone to those interceptions and those pick sixes. He's a guy who's not proven in the playoffs. So, is he a guy who's going to kind of fall apart in the playoffs and not perform? Could the Cardinals go in there, maybe not have their best performance, but play a Rams team where Matt Stafford doesn't seem to be up to the task? I mean, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but he's another guy that there's question marks. A lot of people question, him in the big game. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's a point to be said there, right? I just saw Shanahan scheme up wide receiver wide open on a game time drive with 1 minute and no timeouts. Cliff called screen down 2 scores and failed to get touchdown after running the clock out. See the difference? Yeah, I see the difference. Shanahan's one of the best play callers and designers in the NFL. And Cliff, though, I think is still a really good coach who needs to work on something. So, of course, there's a difference. They're different coaches, and Shanahan is widely viewed as one of the best offensive play designers in football. So I think you could see the difference between him and a lot of people. Listen, Cliff, don't get me wrong. Cliff has to work on some stuff. But, again, the team's improved 3 years in a row. So I don't think I think there's something there. But I hear you. There's and this, again, I'll refer back like when I had the good fortune of having Brett Coleman as a guest on a live stream. We talked about this, and he asked, his take on Cliff, and his take was Cliff's play design is top notch. His play calling or sequencing, that's where, he's not as certain. So he need, absolutely. But again, I'm hoping, I'm hopeful that Cliff will continue to develop in his play calling. Cardiac Cards, yeah, that nickname's been around for a long time, and it's felt like it, right? Chris, Stafford will be responsible for some of the best QB seasons ever, throwing the Megatron mega season and Cup this year, but I think it's just not his cards to have playoff success. Here's hoping, right? This year, right? Ooh, thank you for being here, Hot Perry. Score predictions for Rams wild card. I'm not even sure I'm ready to think about that yet, but you'll in the chat give me your score predictions for that game. My score prediction is gonna be 34-30, but I'm not saying who scores 34 yet. I could see it being either team, but I think that kind of game. I think a 34-30 team, and either team could win. That's my best guess right now. Maybe I'll change as we get closer and I look at the matchup. But yeah, but I think, I think I could see it as a high scoring game. Especially with the Cardinals defense struggling and all those cornerbacks out, they're going to give up a lot of points. Hopefully, they can put up a lot of points. That's my prediction. John Dunn, thank you for being here. We can beat this Rams team if we take Cup out. One of those elite teams will take Cup out. If we dink and dump and chew up the time possession, we can beat the Lambs. I mean, this, we can beat them. This Cardinals team can. Will they? I don't know, but they absolutely can. So, and, part of it is, having the right game plan. Cup has been there. I mean, he's been a monster this year, receiver. Yeah, if you can find a way to contain him, and if the Cardinals can, keep chewing up the clock and put up some points, yeah, I think that absolutely. Let's see. What's changed? When's the last time has kind of talked about the weekly mentality? Well, that I think here's my take on that one. Okay. The thing they've been saying, the 1-0 mentality, right? That's what they've been saying. You've got to win. Our goal is to go 1-0 every week. That statement has been a response to people asking when they were playing well, and people were asking questions about, essentially asking them how they feel about having this great season they were having. That 1-0 mentality was a response to that, as a way to kind of, it's interview speak, right? Players and coaches, they say, they learn the right things to say that deflect and refocus. And if they said, yeah, we're having a great season, this is awesome, obviously that gets plastered all over bulletin boards. So I don't think them not saying the 1-0 mentality anymore is a function of them having the wrong mindset. I think it's because they're not winning, and people aren't asking them now. People are no longer asking them, how do you stay focused when you're having such an amazing season, as people were asking them in the first half of the season. And then you respond, oh, we keep a 1-0 mentality every game. When you're losing, it's a different question you're getting asked, like, what's wrong? And your answer, then there's not a place to answer with, well, we're just having the 1-0 mentality. And then you start talking about, we got to clean things up. We're not that far. We got to get things right. We've got to execute. So I don't think the fact that they're not saying that anymore is because something switched and their mentality is wrong. They're getting asked different questions, and if that was an answer to a certain type of question. So that's my take, but good question. Interesting playoff matchups. Are you looking forward to? I haven't really even looked, to be honest, at all the playoff matchups. I'm so focused on the Cardinals. So I'll have to look at that. But if anyone in the chat has a playoff matchup they're looking for, you know, put it in the chat. Love to hear what playoff matchups you're looking for. Got to pay Kyler. Kirk ain't getting nothing. Okay, so you're like, move on from Kirk. Go with rookies and bargain players. And we are gonna have to play Kyler, so that's for sure, right? Cliff's coaching hasn't improved at all. The roster improved, still playing penalties, horrible plays. I'm going to disagree with you. It's not where it needs to be, but I disagree. But you absolutely, you have every right to have your opinion. I have so I'm not going to, I think he has improved. It's not where I want it to be, but again, to each his own opinion. Kirk is useless. AJ is done useless. CeeDee Lamb is looking a lot better to me than Simmons. I don't like to call anyone useless. I don't like to use that kind of rhetoric, but Kirk has been inconsistent and he disappears. He has, I like the quote or the nickname, Kirk one good catch, or Christian one big catch, one good catch Kirk, or whatever it was. AJ Green hasn't looked good lately. And right now you say, well, would you rather have Simmons or CeeDee Lamb on this team? Right now, I'd probably say CeeDee Lamb. And, and I like Simmons, but he hasn't been as good as we'd hope, right? Do you re-sign Chandler? That's a great question. That's a tough question we've been asking all year long. The answer to most of whenever you ask a question, you re-sign someone, for me, it always starts with, well, at what price? And I was looking at this, and I'm probably going to look at some more. If he's looking for 17, 18, 19, 20 million, the top pass rushers are making 28 million, but those are guys that are like in their prime, like, a TJ Watt and guys in the Bosas that are entering their prime and just signed a big contract in their 20s. They're making 25, 28 million, those kinds of guys. Myles Garrett, he's going to be 32. So like if he's asking like 17, 20 million, probably not. That's pass rushers in the 30s don't sign for that much. If he's willing to take, 12, 14 million, considering it. And and I looked at the numbers today and he's a great pass rusher, but there's a big part of me that says, let him walk and find a guy, who you can bring in for 7 to 10 million, who's going to be maybe, not as good, but you get Marcus Golden and another competent pass rusher. I think you can work with that, but I don't know. Let's see. Wolf agrees with Jordan. That's fair. Again, we all have our views, right? Jordan's saying, let AJ and Kirk walk and let's trade for Calvin Ridley. I mean, listen, there's the question with Calvin Ridley, like what's going to happen with him. So, again, we were talking about this in the Discord. I'm going to keep plugging the Discord. There's conversations all week long. So again, if the link is in the description of the video, if you're not on the Discord, join in there because there's always good conversations going on in there. And we were talking about this. The tough part with Calvin Ridley is based on his size. He's not as big as I think Cliff likes his outside receivers to be. He's like, I think 6 foot 190, 6'1". He's a little, he's not tiny, but he's not a big receiver. So he profiles more as a slot receiver. So now he's going to be expensive when it's time to pay him, I think. But even though I know this year was kind of weird for him, as talented as he is, he's going to be a big, to command a big contract. So do you pay that much for a slot receiver? I don't know. Again, in this offense, he's a slot receiver, but he's a great player, though. Don't get me wrong. Draft Drake London or Traylon Burks. Don't pay these wide receivers at moment. Kyler had good protection and is holding onto the ball. We need guys that can get open and win one-on-ones. Yeah, and I was thinking about that, too. That's a good point, Mr. Mono. Like, those I mentioned in my reaction video that some of those sacks was Kyler holding on to the ball a while, and I wonder how many of those were coverage sacks because the receivers couldn't get open. I'd have to look back at it. Again, I'm kind of doing my reactions just from the initial watching of the game. I don't catch everything, but I think it probably had something to do with that. And yeah, I think there's a good point. Like draft a big outside. I'd like them to draft a big outside receiver and maybe bring in a veteran at a reasonable deal mean, when Hopkins is healthy, let's remember we're missing Hopkins, and that's a huge thing. Rondale Moore's out, so I don't know. I definitely don't want to pay big money for AJ Green and Christian Kirk. I'd maybe bring either of. I'd probably be more apt to bring Kirk back at the right price, but yeah. Let's see. Back shoulder fades and QB sneaks don't exist with Cliff. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really do those, does he? It'd be nice to see them, right? Thanks, Nice Guitars and Bass on the Wall, fellow musician. Awesome, appreciate that. We got a few musicians who are part of the Discord in the community, but yeah, I got all these guitars and decided to hang them up on the wall, and my wife likes them better up there than she does, like, leaning against the wall. So thank you for that. Ruben Ortiz, thank you for being here. Have you seen next year's schedule? If current trends are to say the same, Cliff and the Cardinals should win 14 games next year, 5-10-1. Sorry, in projecting that. I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, I haven't looked at the schedule. I know a few of the teams that they're playing slotted. So, hopefully they'll win 14 games. I at this point, I hate to look that far ahead and project what they'll win, but as we get into the off season, obviously we'll look at that, and that'll be some of the stuff we'll talk about. When we're done talking about actual games that are going on. But yeah, but if they can improve, that would be nice, right? Stafford, John saying Stafford's Carson Palmer 2.0. Okay, so he's that kind of quarterback. I could see that. Guy puts up big numbers, but doesn't really, win the big game, right? Here's hoping J.J. Watt comes back, puts us over the edge. I mean, Watt was such a huge part of this interior defensive line, and yeah, I mean, if he can come back and be healthy, that could be huge. And let's take a second and look at that. Like, throughout the year, the run defense has been one of the biggest struggles, right? And we've talked about it more recently that the interior defensive line is one of the big reasons. Like the middle linebackers have struggled, but I think some of that is because the interior defensive lineman hasn't been doing their part to help, free up those linebackers. But if you look at, like, there's a couple depth players who've been playing a little bit better. Overall, the interior defensive line is still struggling, but Rashard Lawrence, when he came back, was looking better. Zach Allen is playing better. You got a couple guys that are giving you a little something. If you can get J.J. Watt in there and put him in that mix and he's healthy, I'm not going to say they're going to be a great interior defensive line, but if you add J.J. Watt and you got Zach Allen playing better and a couple guys just get a little bit better, it could go from being a major deficiency to competent, so maybe I'm being a little overly optimistic, but J.J. Watt could really make a big difference there. If he gets in there and Zach Allen keeps playing, well, like he's played in recent weeks, and get some good play from Michael Dogby and guys like that, maybe the interior defensive line cleans it up a little bit. Here's hoping, right? All right, Simon, I'm paying Kirk maybe 2 to 3 years, $11 million a year. He knows the offense. He does show up, even if it's not in big moments. He's young. He doesn't have injury history. Paying Kyler, not paying Jones and Chase Edmonds. Okay. I mean, I think, I think that's very reasonably thought out. I get that. Like, I get that receivers are expensive, and I'm probably a little more, I'm not as down on Kirk as some people are. I think he can be inconsistent, but when you have like an offense, if you get DeAndre Hopkins back, he's your consistent guy. And if Kirk is showing up and puts up 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, which is kind of like what he's trending towards, I think, at least the yards. I have to look at the touchdowns. If he's giving you that, and it's not every game, but if you got that consistent guy in Hopkins, and then Kirk just, flashes at points, overall, that's actually a really good formula for an offense. And then you get a few other guys that flash here and there, and then you got that one steady guy who's kind of moving the chains for you. Maybe for me, I feel more comfortable in the $8 to $10 million a year for Kirk, but I think you're right. I mean, that's probably a going rate for a player. He's had a few injuries, but he does have a significant injury history, and he is talented. leaning with you on paying Jones. I know I've gone back and forth on that. Chase Edmonds, I like Chase, but I think I think he's good in this offense, but I think you're right about that because guys like that, you can draft a guy like Chase Edmonds on day 2 or 3 of the draft, like pretty much every year. Those guys, running backs are just very easy to find. I think the big back like Connor's a little tougher to find. I think you bring him back if you can at the right price. And, unless Chase is going to come back for a really, really team-friendly deal, let him go make his money somewhere and then bring someone else. I think that's probably a good call there. All right, so we got Cards 30, Rams 27. Okay, I like it. Tim going 24-30. Are you saying Cardinals 24, Rams 30? Or are you doing like me and like I don't know which team? Let's see. Chris 24-13 win over LA. I hope you're right. I'd love to see that. Right. You got a couple nicknames. Cliff, you got to give him credit. Kingsbury and Christian, one nice catch. Kirk. Those are some good nicknames, right? Ooh, man, Wolf is really, 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 really frustrating. 31-13 Rams. Okay, I hear you. Tim said he meant 34-30, maybe. Okay. Any word on Connor? I hope, and Erica, thank you for being here. I hope he didn't get more banged up. It was nice having him back. We need the guy. Yeah, he got banged up in there, and they were looking at him. And I have to. Was he back in the game? Let's see. I feel like maybe I'm wrong. I feel like he got back in the game, and someone tell me if I'm misremembering. Sometimes it's all a blur, but he definitely struggled though, right? Yeah, 100%. Or got banged up a little bit, but hopefully he's back because we need him. Let's see. Miss Morrow saying drop Kirk and Green, get Godwin, but he isn't leaving Tampa. Yeah, he probably isn't going to leave there, but yeah, I mean, he's a really good receiver. Wouldn't mind seeing him Cardinal red, but yeah. 24-2 Cards, moving on. Okay. All right. More Cliff hate. Okay, Cliff had a good plan, Kingsbury. Okay. Cliff, you got to Genia boy. Thank you for being here, Cliff. You got to tip your hat, Kingsbury. Okay. JJ, they had a better plan. They wanted it to win more. They have to look at the film. We're not ready to play. So that's his quotes. Yeah, I mean that's all coaches speak, right? And maybe it's true, but that's definitely that's what you expect a coach to say. Yeah. Cliff, they just wanted more Kingsbury. Yeah. All right. Aquatic Ambience, thank you for being here. Harbaugh outcoached Harbaugh coached Kaepernick to the Super Bowl. I want him to be the next head coach. He would be a good culture. Here's the thing with Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh. That dude is intense. I know people are like, that's what we want, but he's intense in a way that warms out his welcome after a few years. And I think that works better in the college game because players are only there from 2 to 4 years, right? And then they move on before they can start before that player starts tuning you out. But Harbaugh, the reason he's not still coaching in San Francisco is I think he wore out his welcome. And I think there's something about his personality that there's a point where people start tuning him out because of the way he does things. I don't know. These are things I've heard people talk about with him. So I wouldn't go for Harbaugh as a coach, but listen, again, I hear you. I mean, we all are welcome to our opinions. For me, I wouldn't, but yeah. What has he improved on? His play calling has improved. I know you disagree. It's still rough. And the team, I'm not, I'd probably spend a long time talking. I think his play calling has improved some, not where we want it to be. I think some, he uses a tight end more than he did before. And I know you're saying that the team's improvement is all talent, and I think the talent's part of it. But I do think he's gotten better. And, again, I know we would go in circles round and round on this. I think I'm going to leave this at we disagree. I think he has improved, not where I want him to be, but I think we would be in an endless cycle of I'm right, you're right, I'm wrong. We would continue to disagree, I think, forever on this one. I'm guessing you're making this up. A lot of people talking about signing Antonio Brown. So, unless that really is breaking news, but I'd be a little surprised. I'm refreshing ESPN just to see. I figured you're probably, I don't see anything about that. Okay. I don't think that's happening, but who knows, right? Let's see. Got to pay Kyler. Chandler can come back at a bargain. Yeah, if Chandler's willing to come back at a bargain, I don't think he's going to, but I'm generally in that boat. Simmons is confused, playing him like a Swiss knife. He's not Adrian Wilson. For days, he is making a mistake. Yeah, I mean, maybe they really do need to just let him get in one spot, right? And just play him in that one spot and let him become really good at that. And maybe that's part of the problem. I think that's a fair comment. Bring Hassan back. I mean, it'd be nice to bring Hassan back. I just don't know if he'd come back. I mean, maybe. I would not blame Hassan if he was very quietly frustrated with the Cardinals, if not very angry because they misused him. He should have been a pass rusher from day one. They tried to make an off-ball linebacker. He was mediocre at best at that. They moved him to edge rusher, and then he puts up a career year and goes, and moves on and is still good at a pass rusher. And I think he's going to get paid as a pass rusher. I just don't know that he's going to come back here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what's going on in his mind, how he feels about it. But I could understand how if he were very frustrated with how Cardinals mismanaged, and that cost him a lot of money. I mean, if he had been a pass rusher from day one and had been effective like he probably would have been, he might be making a lot more money right now. So I don't know. Yeah. If BA had this roster, he would have won 14 games. Maybe, yeah. I mean, that's entirely possible. One more game than Cliff, right? Or two more games, I guess, than Cliff. Okay. Yeah. Chandler Jones should not be extended. Cardinals overpaid Patrick Peterson too many times past prime. Ditto Fitzgerald. Throwing shit. They definitely, Patrick Peterson really kind of took a dip. I'm not going to get into Fitzgerald on that one, but yeah, do not sign Antonio Brown. Yeah, I'm on that boat. Don't sign him. We need O-line and D-line. I agree. I think that's what we need to really work on in the next draft. I'm glad we drafted Game Metcalf over this Isabel dude. Oh, wait, yeah. Yes, that one hurts, right? Yep. What was J.J. Watt's injury? I think it was a rotator cuff and a pectoral injury, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was a rotator cuff and maybe a couple other little things with that. I'm not a physician, so I don't, but it was some sort of shoulder arm thing, I believe. Someone wants to correct me, please do. Let me real quick say a huge thank you and shout out to Back to Constitution for the super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate the support. Back to Constitution, great support of the channel. Someone who's been support channel for a while. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Huge. So I appreciate everyone watching and everyone being part of the channel community. So 100%, but the folks who, wanted to support a little more, definitely sincerely appreciate that. So thank you. So back to the question. Let's see. Okay. There was a few times Kyler checked the ball down with a clean pocket, and I was wondering why. Check down should be an escape route, not what you pass to when you have the time. Yeah. I mean, there were a couple, there were some issues like that. Yeah. We got the AFC West, New England, Philly, and the Vikings. Okay. Philly has been better than I think people thought. Vikings game, that I don't know if I'd want to. We'll see what's going on there. They may have a new coach, depending on what's going on. So yeah, AFC West is a tough. I don't know. That's looking like a tough to me. That sound like a tough matchup. I don't know. But yeah, NFC South. Okay, NFC South. Panthers again. Do you feel great against the Panthers? I don't know. Yeah, let's go back to the NFC. Back to the NFC East. Yeah, I mean, listen, I wouldn't mind. That would be a division that I think we do pretty well in right now, right? Pay Zach Ertz. Okay, yeah, that's with Ertz. It's interesting what what is it going to cost to pay him? Because some people think he's going to get paid a lot. He is later in his career. I could see him wanting to be here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe his wife plays soccer here, or in Arizona, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. But I mean, he's been really great in the offense, so for sure. Watching K1 play, I can't help but think a tall quarterback would be having way more success just to see above the 6'5" linebackers and left passes tipped and blocked. Thoughts? Alice, thank you for that question. So, the tip passes and seeing the field in the middle of the field, I think is affected by his height. But at the same time, some of those taller quarterbacks aren't going to be able to do some of the other things Kyler does. With every quarterback, it's a mixed bag of good, things they're really good at and things they're not as good at. And there's a few truly elite quarterbacks that do most things well. But like most quarterbacks have some part of their game that isn't as strong as another part. And, maybe those tip passes are an issue, but what Kyler also brings is the ability to make something out of nothing, with his legs. Some of those wow plays he makes by escaping and then making a throw down the field. Like he makes throws down the field that only a handful of quarterbacks can make. And he makes runs that maybe only one other. So he makes runs that only a few other quarterbacks can make, and he strings them together, the throws and the runs, in ways that I don't think anyone else does. So yes, those things are concerns, but again, that taller quarterback, there's going to be things Kyler does that I don't think that quarterback can do. And I don't think there are many, if any, running quarterbacks who, and I shouldn't use the term running quarterbacks. I think that's a little bit problematic, but I don't know that there's another quarterback who runs as well as Kyler, who throws as well as Kyler, who's ever played the game. So I'm a big believer that Kyler's a guy, even with those flaws in terms of the height, the concerns with that. So I'm all for keeping Kyler. That's my take. But yeah, let's see. Monday night at Rams. Is that coming up next? Is that next year, or is that? I don't know where that is, but let me know what you're referencing there. Let's see. Expect the worst, hope for the best. Yeah. Tar quarterback would be nice, but kind midwell mode with Kingsbury and Murray. So okay. Let's see. Okay, so you're checking on. You're trying to check on Connor. I'm assuming here went to locker room injury. No update yet, so hopefully he's okay. We've struggled at prime time, so that's for sure, right? Yeah. Seattle peaked at wrong time. They're a smoking team right now. So all is not lost today, Cards fans. We're in the dance. Everyone is undefeated. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way you have to look at this. And I get the way things have been going is very frustrating. But Seahawks actually have been playing some pretty good football lately. Russell Wilson was injured for a while. When he came back from the injury, he was still, I think, having some lingering effects. They've got some issues as a team, but we're catching them at probably some of their best football. That doesn't excuse the mental lapses the Cardinals had and the struggles, but I think this team is pretty good. Are playing pretty good right now. Take a sip of water, Professor. Okay, I have a really nice water bottle that my wife got me for Christmas, so that was probably loud. Sorry. I took a sip of water. I probably needed to. Arizona cannot win without Marco Wilson. Seattle picked on his side of the field all day long. Zach Allen is good, but not big enough. Penny ran to his side that 6-yard touchdown run. I mean, I think in a perfect world, you've got a nice big run stuffer in the middle, and then Allen is a little more of a penetrator, pass rush type. I think Marco Wilson's been up and down this year. What I would say is they can't win without a good corner, without better cornerback play, whether it's Wilson or someone else. I mean, Alford being out obviously is huge. Alford had been their best cornerback all year if you look at the grades and everything. Wilson, I like Wilson's future, but I don't think he's been he's gotten beat a little bit this year, especially like in the red zone. But cornerback is a problem. No, they can't win without better cornerback play. I would say, whether it's Wilson or someone else, right? I mean, he's better than Borders, that's for sure. So, I know all sacked against us. Rams Monday night. We got to break the trend in prime time. So is that when the playoff game is or I don't? You have to help me. Sorry, I think the playoff game's the weekend, right? Unless I'm mistaken. I'm probably missing something, which I often do. We have an extra day with being. Oh, so I guess it is. It's the playoff game Monday Night Football. I guess people are probably yes. I guess that's what's going on. I have to look at that. Okay. The extra day might be good, but prime time we've struggled. But yeah. We need better defensive backs to set. And again, the problem is, like, I think our defensive backs, when they're healthy, are good enough. The team's worked well. I like to see them maybe bring in someone next year, but man, so many injuries, and so yeah, that's been tough. Well, let's see. Watt Animals, thank you for being here. Let Chandler walk. Chandler Jones walk. He's a one-trick pony. He's a great pass rusher. He makes some big tackles against the run from time to time, but he's not consistently good against the run. So I think, I would say though, at that one trick, he's a thoroughbred. So there's something to be said there. He is a great pass rusher. But for me, it's how much the salary is going to be. And I think it's probably going to be more than I think it's worth for, though. Yeah, Zach Allen's not great against the run defense, and that's true. He's, again, more of a kind of a penetrator, pass rush type. But if you get him next to a guy in there who's better against the run, it helps offset that. But I still like Allen as part of the rotation, but you definitely need some run stoppers in there. So for sure. D-Hop needs to get the max. Well, D-Hop is already making there's not really a max, I think, in the NFL like there's the NBA, but D-Hop's already getting paid. They restructured or extended his contract when they traded for him, so he's already getting paid. You're not going to cut Kirk, but because this is the last year of his deal, but let him walk, right? So yeah. For Chubb, thank you for being here. I wanted Samuel Jr. over Zaven. Thoughts? Yeah, so that's it's a really good question. At the time of the draft, or let me say this, I think Zaven Collins is going to be a good player when he gets a chance to play. They're not playing him, and that's frustrating. When he's been on the field, with the exception of the few weeks after he kind of got banged up, he's been good. His PFF grades have been actually really good, with the exception of that stretch after he got his shoulder kind of banged up. So I like Zaven Collins as a player, but like just from a total like draft strategy perspective, I didn't like drafting another middle linebacker in the first round. I would have rather probably, if that was the best player on the board and the guy, from just a pure roster building perspective, I probably would have rather seen them trade back, pick up another pick later, and draft a middle linebacker in round 3. There's good guy, some good players that get drafted in the second, third round of middle linebackers. And Asante Samuel Jr. was a guy I kind of was hoping they would get. He has been, he hasn't been amazing, but he's a rookie. But, I thought quarterback was an area where certainly they needed help. So generally, I wouldn't have taken Asante Samuel Jr. at 17. I think that was where the Cardinals pick, if I'm not mistaken. I wouldn't taken him that high. I would want to have traded back. And in fact, he went in the second round, a couple picks before the Cardinals, took Rondale Moore. So in a trade backs, I would have, objectively speaking, again, as much as I like Zaven Collins as a player, I probably would have preferred they traded back, picked up a cornerback or another position in need, and then get a middle linebacker in round 3 or 4. So yeah, generally speaking, I'm more or less kind of along those lines. Mr. Brown, as for Ling Chandler walk, do we need an obvious hole before the draft? So I'm not sure if in terms of, I'm not sure I understand what does that leave a hole before the draft? Or, I mean, I'm going to try to understand what you're asking. Apologize for what you're, but I think, I mean, that does leave a hole in the edge rushing, and I think you can fill that with a guy in free agency. He's not going to be as good as Chandler Jones, but again, someone in the Discord, I think Red Sea, who's a regular contributor in the Discord, said go like sign someone like Dante Fowler Jr. for like maybe 10 million a year or something like that, and that's he's not as good as Chandler Jones, but he's cheaper. Maybe someone who's a step below but cheaper, and then and that's kind of probably the direction I'd go. Whether it's that particular player or not, I don't know, but BA and Bulls have their sort of 3-6. Maybe I mean BA doesn't play. BA likes different types of quarterbacks and receivers, so I don't know. Yeah. When does D Hop's contract end? Oh, I think. I mean, it's there's a few years. Because they extended him. I'm looking it up right now. They extended his contract. I think after they traded for him, that was kind of part of the deal because he wanted to make more money, so they kind of had to do that. And my internet, of course, is being slow because I'm trying to do three things at once. So I'll have to, if I can get that up, I'll look that. If I can get that information. Oh wait, here we go. Looks like does he have? His contract goes through 2024 now is what I'm seeing. So he's signed through 2024. So they've got a couple more years on him. Yeah. Yeah, get ready to draft another linebacker in the first round. Yeah. Oh man, if they do that, I'm just gonna be so annoyed, right? Which two teams are going to make the Super Bowl? I was asked this on like a podcast I was on or recorded this last week, and my guess was the Chiefs and the Packers. That's my guess, but we'll see, right? Let's see. If you look at the passing chart for tonight, most of them were in the middle at intermediate range. Yeah, so but Kyler, I don't know. I mean, I think Kyler's throws weren't. I mean, there were a couple that were dropped, but I think his throws weren't terribly off. I think you had AJ Green that kind of dropped one or two. I mean, he didn't have his best game passing, but I don't think Kyler had the worst game either. Where we sucked was on the outside. So I guess maybe if I'm understanding what you're saying is that's kind of the point about that his abilities to the middle of the field isn't really an issue. Okay. That's the healthiest O line we have. That a nightmare. Okay, so correct me if I misunderstand, but I think what you're saying is our offensive line was actually healthy, but it was still a bad situation. That was a nightmare scenario. Because we had our offensive line as healthy as they've been in a while, it seems like, and we still didn't play well, right? Ertz may want to stay, but I wouldn't bet on us paying him. Isn't Max Williams still on contract when he comes back from injury next season? Max is starting to play a big time role for injury. I feel like Max Williams does have another year on his contract, and I do think I think they absolutely bring him back. Max Williams, I think they like having him back. Let's see. No, he is a free agent, so they'll have to re-sign Max Williams. But I think they'll bring him back. I think he's been really good for them. I like his fit on this team. Obviously it was disappointing they got injured. So I think Max Williams will be back, but I think you could bring them both back. I think you could use them both. Again, it's always at the right price, right? Professor, let's fire up the base amps sometime. Hey, I live in Georgia, so it's probably a long distance to do that. But I do have a base amp, and I once in a while do play it. So, yeah. Jack Tong, thank you for being here. Hopefully the Cardinals can treat their playoff opponents like the 49ers always treat the Rams. Here's hoping, right? Yeah. The way Kyler holds the ball when he runs scares me. It does. I mean, he's got it out there a little bit. Let's say, I mean, this is probably going to come back to haunt me for saying this, but like Kyler's fumbled the ball, had a lot of fumbles that are kind of attributed to him, but they're not like they've not been the ones where he's been running and him holding the ball. They've been all the under center stuff, the kind of messy nonsense we've had with the bad snaps and the miscues under there. But in terms of like him holding the ball the way that scares all of us when he's running, I don't think he's had many fumbles that have been directly related to that. And it's probably in part because when he's out there in space and running, he does a really good job of recognizing where people are and knowing when to tuck and when to dive and when to go out of bounds. So it hasn't been a problem yet, but watch it come back and haunt me for saying that, right? Let's see. Simon, watching the quarterbacks today was frustrating. Cards need to decide if Murphy is a slot or an outside cornerback right now. Hamilton did not look comfortable in the outside this game against Metcalf. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Murphy is really good in the slot and his rookie season, he played on the outside a lot because of injuries and suspensions to Patrick Peterson. And he struggled. And then he moved him into the slot, and he developed into being a pretty good slot cornerback. And then this year, they were playing him, and I did the video this early in the season. The way they were doing it is when they were in a 3-4, right? Which they're in the nickel more than anything, but when they're truly in a 3-4 set, they would play him on the outside on one side and Robert Alford on the outside on the other. And then when they go to their nickel sets, which they do most of the time, he would move into slot, and then Wilson and Alford were on the outside. And I think something like that's probably the best use of him. Have him when you only have two cornerbacks on the field, have him be the number 2, but on the outside. And when you go into those nickel looks or dime, even when you have more than 2, have him in the slot. The part of the problem is because of injuries, they've had to, kind of play him on the outside more, I think. And Hamilton, has been really good for the team this year, except he is, playing in this. They've been playing him in the slot. He's been good when he's in the slot, and you're right. I think he's struggled on the outside. So, in my opinion, yeah, I think in a perfect world, they would figure out they'd get a really good outside cornerback, someone, whether it be free agency or draft, someone that can develop into their number 1 cornerback. Then they would probably have, when they just have 2 cornerbacks out there, maybe have Murphy as the guy on the outside. And then when they go to the slot or go to the nickel, then have Wilson on the outside, and Hamilton would be that backup guy, backup slot. So that's what I'd probably like to see. But yeah, that's a good point you make there. Why did Chandler Jones cover Tyler Lockett on third down? I have no idea. they're doing that zone blitz thing that 3-4 defenses like to do. And Steve Kami's more depth on the roster. Yeah. And like, this is, so here's kind of one of the things with Kine. One of the areas where he has struggled the most has been the draft, and like there was someone did a kind of an analytics analysis of like, or they did statistical analysis of like how many game, I forget what it was, but like how many games people that the team has drafted has played, how many games those players have played or whatever, and did this analysis of basically which teams have done the best and worst jobs drafting in terms of getting production and play out of their players. And the Cardinals over the last 5 or 7 years or whatever it was, were dead last on that. So I know everyone knows Keim has struggled in the draft, but like he's hit on a few players, but he's just there. It hasn't been consistent. And when you miss on the draft that much, you have a hard time building the depth you need, right? I think he's done a good job of, making some trades. Rodney Hudson, DeAndre Hopkins, Zach Ertz. I think some of his free agent moves have been really good. James Conner and a few of the guys they bring in, onto the roster, even a few of the guys on the back end of the roster, like Greg Dortch and Twan Wesley and some of these other guys are bringing the, Antonio Hamilton, I think has been for a guy that was, a guy off the street who was, cut by Tampa Bay has been very good for them. But when you draft poorly that consistently, it shows up in terms of your depth on the roster. So, yeah, obviously I think they need to add more depth, and they have to do that by drafting better, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's certainly come back to bite them, right? Cornerback had a concussion in the first quarter. Okay. And which one I'm wondering who had that. Was it Kevin Peterson maybe? That might, because he was starting for them last week. So I'd have to check that, but I wonder who it was. Isaiah Simmons pass coverage is hard to watch sometimes. I think he'll figure it out. I mean, I hope so. I mean, he should be able to figure it out because he played so many different things in college. I feel like that's a skill set. I wonder if they're, putting him in the wrong spots. Hopefully he does. I mean, it seemed like he was a smart kid coming out of college. They asked a lot of him at Clemson. He delivered. It's a different game at the pro level. I think maybe part of the problem is they are asking him to do too much, and he's not able to focus as much on one thing. And, most players in the NFL aren't asked to do as many things as he's been asked in terms of the roles he's playing on defense. So maybe they need to kind of let him focus in on become really good at one position instead of moving around so much. But do I think he'll figure it out? I think if they let him focus on one position, he will. If they keep trying to move around too much, he might continue to struggle with that for a while. So that's my opinion on that. So yeah. So Los Angeles Rams play St. Louis Cardinals and Los Angeles Coliseums in 75. Wow. Playoffs sat on a 50-yard line. Card side, Jim Hart, Metcalf, and Gray were great. We lost, but it was good. Oh, so Al, you've been a fan for a long time. I was born that year, so I did not see that one. Awesome. Okay. What's Rondale Moore's injury? So I feel like it was a leg or calf injury or something. I'd have to look that up, but he was a guy who was questionable leading into the and then didn't end up playing. So I feel like he'll be back sooner rather than later, assuming they, I don't know if he'll be back for the first game of playoffs or not, but he's a guy who he's not in the IR. So I feel like they expect they'll be able to get him back soon. So hopefully they can get him back this first game of the playoffs. We need to draft an edge either way. They all suck besides Golden. I mean, I don't think they all suck besides Golden. I think, Devin Kennard is not a top line pass rusher, but if he's the third guy, he does a good job setting the edge against the run, and he's not getting, really sacks from him. I think he's a good depth guy, but you don't want him, as your starter. Gardeck is a guy who's a situational pass rusher. So I wouldn't say they suck, but there's no one besides Golden that I want as the starter. That's what I would say. I think I like some of the depth, but yeah, they need to get another guy. Whether if they don't bring back Jones, they need someone else who's a starter, edge rusher. So yeah, I think I would like to see them draft an edge rusher maybe in round 2. I know some people say round 1. I'd say more round 2 or 3, but they need to bring in some guys and develop them. And I don't know if Demicheji is going to develop into anything or not. We'll have to see from him too. But if Bill O'Brien gets hired by Jags, maybe we can trade a fifth. So Charlie was Josh Allen. Well, I can all but assure you, if he gets hired, he will not be hired to be the GM. So I don't know that we're going to be able to pull that off. And the book on Bill O'Brien, he's just a good coach. He's just not a good GM, right? So I don't think it's a bad move for them to hire him. But I don't think we're gonna be able to get that to happen, right? I think Trent Baalke was the GM there, if I'm not mistaken, and I think he's still there, but I could be wrong. What's your biggest positive about the regular season? Your negative takeaway about the regular season? Okay, that's a really great question, Aquatic Ambience. Thank you for asking that. Biggest positive is, despite as much as there's been a lot of struggles, biggest positive to me is probably that Kyler continues to develop. I know it feels frustrating to say that now, but his his development has, and Brett Coleman described it as very linear. And I think that's a good way to put it, because every year he's gotten a little bit better. And I feel like he's taken a step forward. He hasn't taken a huge leap, but I think part of that's a function of the fact that maybe he just started out better than most rookie quarterbacks, because he had a really good rookie year. And like, if you look at a guy like, like Baker Mayfield, like who's often compared to, because both from Oklahoma, Mayfield's been up and down, right? And there's so many questions with Kyler, like the fact that, he's not had this like sophomore slump or third year slump. He keeps getting better. And so that's, I think, to me, probably one of the biggest positives, aside from the fact that, they made the playoffs since the first time 2015. Your negative about the regular season. My biggest negative, I would say the one that, the negative that to me is the biggest long-term concern, okay, is that this team again struggled down the stretch. Like the run defense has been the biggest negative all year, I'd say. But that's a thing I think they can fix in the offseason by making the right moves, getting some interior defensive line help. Like those kinds of things I think they can fix in the offseason. But when they every year kind of collapse down the end, you do wonder, and this is why there's a lot of people who are really down on Cliff. And listen, I don't know that I'm right on this, but like in my being an apologist for him, but like that's the thing you do worry about. Is that a long-term thing that's going to continue persist? Is that a chronic problem with this team? So to me, the fact that that's probably the biggest negative is that, again, they collapsed, right? So yeah, I really hate how simplistic our pass scheme is. Okay. Yeah. It seems like, like the running schemes are very complex, but the pass, it feels like maybe it's not. Yeah. It's they do a lot of I do think the route adjustments that the receivers make are there's a lot to that. And, again, refer back to like when Brett Coleman came on and talked about the Cardinals, he talked about that their offensive playbook, the way they do it is the playbook isn't huge. Like there's not a ton of different plays, but it's just they change up the route, the routes, and that they take a playbook that doesn't have a ton of plays, and then they make some variants based on the route running. So, yeah, it does feel like, for example, last year it really felt like that there was a lot that DeAndre Hopkins wasn't getting used very in a diverse way, right? They just kind of threw a lot of, routes, slant, or I'm sorry, a lot of slant routes and a lot of hook routes. And so I hear you there. Yeah. Jack Bruce, John Paul Jones, or PMAC. So I was just talking about bases. Flea's one of my favorite bases, even though I'm not a huge Red Hot Chili Peppers guy. But I'm probably a different generation. Yeah. Let's see. Add shuffle passes in short on goal line plays. Okay. They did some of those they've been doing those between the 20s, so maybe see a little bit of that. I wouldn't hate that if they can make it execute right. Maybe the issue is our scouting, not necessarily. Then that could be it, right? And I think that's a fair point, because here's the deal: like, Keim got his job because he was a really good scout, and then he became the director of player personnel. Like I remember, I knew who Keim was before they hired his general manager, because I just follow the Cardinals closely, and I remember who he was. And so I think you might have a point. And so maybe there's some issues. Their scouting department needs work, maybe, but is it? Who knows? Are they not listening to the scouts? Are their scouts just not great? Is their process problematic? I know one of the things people have pointed out too, though, is part of the problem is they draft these guys and they play them out of position, right? And that like Hassan Reddick, and so that certainly hurts. So, but that's a fair point, right? At what point in the playoffs do you think Watt and D-Hop will be back? So, my best guess is Watt. I think they activated him and he's eligible to play anytime now. I think within the next however there's a certain amount of days. I think that he has to be on the. There's certain rules about the activation, but I think Watt could be back first week. We'll see. I don't know for sure. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Hopkins, though, I think the best case scenario for him is from what I've heard, is NFC championship game, and that's still not even sure. It might. Some of the things I've heard is that they think now he might be done for the season. So if Hopkins, I think the only way we're seeing Hopkins is if we make a deep run and we're in the NFC Championship or Super Bowl. I think we could see Watt maybe next week. And if someone knows something different than I do, let me know. But that's the best of my knowledge on that. So Baker has had two of the worst NFL coaches of all time: Hugh Jackson, Freddie Kitchens. Kyler has weapons and stability. Yeah, that's a fair point. So, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, they've had some different situations. So, in terms of the comparison between the two, yeah. Chris saying before the season, when asked if he was happy about having a late bye week on Thanksgiving week, and Cliff said, "If you look back, we have sucked at Thanksgiving," and he wasn't lying. Yeah, no doubt, right? Next year's contracts are crazy. Okay. In terms of the players that are their contract ends, I'm not sure. Certainly with the things are going to be kind of crazy with the salary cap going up for sure. So we'll see. Cliff needs to invest in private investigator to dig up fake. For downtown. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to touch that one, but yeah. Kyle was letting Cliff and Kyler make our picks like more. I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, he was taking input, but I like Moore as a player. I mean, he's been banged up, and I know we haven't seen enough of him. He got kind of disappeared down the season. I don't know. Hopefully we'll get more out of him. But now Isabella, I know Cliff really wanted Isabella. I think if you want to talk about that pick, I think maybe that's one that's a fair one to criticize. That maybe did he let Cliff? But at the same time, if you're a general manager, I mean, you have to take the input from your coaches. So I don't know. That's a tough one, right? When do we get our corners back? I feel like Wilson might be back next week because he was questionable, but Alfred might be a couple weeks out, but I don't know. So yeah. I heard some people talking about hiring Fangio to replace VJ, albeit out of taste frustration. I don't see an upgrade. Do you? I mean, Vic Fangio is a really great defensive coordinator. So would he be an upgrade? Probably, because I think he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL who, obviously was a head coach in Denver. I don't think they're going to fire Vance Joseph. I know we're all frustrated, but I think Vance Joseph, again, people are going to disagree with me, but I think Vance Joseph overall did a really good job. Our cornerback room coming in, we were really concerned about it, and it wasn't a problem until injuries, right? And I think there's some spots where I don't think we have the players to have an elite defense in terms of our defensive interior line and our depth at corner, and he still managed to make a defense that played really good at points. So, maybe people disagree with me. I don't think VJ is moving on, but in a universe where Vance Joseph was fired and Vic Fangio was hired, would that be an upgrade? It would be an upgrade in that Fangio is a better coach. But there is something to be said that, like, when a new defensive coordinator comes in, it usually takes a little bit of time for him to install his system and to get everything going. So you have, those defensive coordinators don't come in usually like right away having immediate success. So you'd have a little half a season to a season to get Fangio, let Fangio get things rolling. So I don't think that's likely to happen, but who knows, right? Alice, Big Ben played his last game as a Steeler today, cost us first Super Bowl win. Yeah. Didn't they make the playoffs though? Maybe I'm wrong. I thought he did, but yeah. Do we re-sign AJ Green or get someone in free agency or even draft another receiver? Ethan, thank you for being here. We talked about this a bit earlier, and I think the consensus of most Cardinals fans right now is AJ Green walks. And I was more of an apologist before him, but I'm starting to move in that direction. So I think maybe we do. He's had some nice plays, but the mental lapses lately have been concerning. So I think maybe let him walk, sign maybe a mid-tier free agent, and maybe draft a big receiver later in the draft. That's probably kind of what I'm thinking. Let's see. Minnesota will probably fire Mike Zimmer. How would you feel about him replacing VJ if we move on from him? I mean, again, he's a great defensive coach in my opinion too. I think my take is with him is very similar to the Vic Fangio, that I think he's probably a better coach than Vance Joseph, but I think Vance Joseph is a good defensive coach. But again, the time it would take to get him things up to speed, I don't know if that's I think if we get the depth on cornerback and fix the defensive interior line, if we can fix some of those things, I think Vance Joseph can make this a top 10 defense. Yeah, sure. If you have a better coach, that's an improvement, but I don't know if that is what I would be looking to maybe fix the personnel right now more than the coach on defense. Cliff asked Keim to bring in Wesley because he played for him at Texas Tech, and overall, especially for depth, he's a good player. I wouldn't be worried about Cliff playing a part in the bring guys. And so, what I'm hearing is you trust Cliff's judgment. I think Wesley is going to be a nice player for this team. I don't know that I don't know if he's necessarily going to be a star, but I think he'll be a nice part of the receiving core. But, there have been issues. Andy Isabella, I don't know what's going on with him. So there's some receivers where it's concerned, but I don't know. Yeah, let's see. Steve Keim's best asset as GM is that players love to semi-retire. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, I know that's it's a good place to live, right? So maybe, I don't know. I like to you and Darren Urban talk Cardinals football. I'd love to talk football with him. I don't know if he works for the team, so I don't know if he, whether he does stuff like this or not. Maybe at some point I might reach out to him. That would be fun, but yeah. That'd be cool. Well, thank you, Chris. It'd be a cool combo. He's been doing it for a long time, and he does a good job with the Arizona Cardinals, their official website. So, yeah. Any other questions? We've gone on for like an hour and a half, hour and 36 minutes now. If there's any other questions, maybe or comments, get one or two more in there, but then we'll probably end this soon. It's getting late, and the semester starts tomorrow. I'm back in class. The professor is back in class starting tomorrow. So maybe one or two more questions, but this was a disappointing loss. And while maybe you're getting your last couple of questions, let me do a couple things. First, let me once again, I did this earlier, but let me thank the folks of that are channel members who help support the channel. These are folks who, you can sign up as a member. The link's below if you're interested, but just believe in the channel and help a little bit financially to help support. And as I try to grow and improve equipment. So I do a shout out to them during my live stream. So I want to thank them. So this is a list of, and some of them have been in the chat today. So thank you all for that. And also one last commercial. I signed up to be with Amazon. They have an affiliate program where you can put links to stuff in your descriptions and stuff. And I can get a little bit of revenue back from that if people. So anyway, I put links to some of the equipment I use, like the microphone, the camera, some of the lighting. So if you're ever in the market for a new mic or anything, consider checking out the links there. No pressure, but anyway, so there's my commercials. But let's see. Let's say the last couple of comments. It's amazing how thoughtful you respond. Very knowledgeable. Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. I try. I don't always hit the right notes, but I definitely, I appreciate that folks are in here taking their time to be in the chat and to watch my videos. And, I appreciate you. So I want to try to convey that in how I respond. But I appreciate that feedback. Thank you very much. Professor, you got to get that sleep. Teach them kids, man. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. All right. Well, it was a rough night, rough game, but I enjoyed hanging out with you guys. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for being part of the live stream. I'm gonna be doing more streams and videos, coming up. So, watch for that. So, thank you so much, and we're gonna go ahead and we will end the stream. See you all later.